Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. First question from a gentleman by the name of Peter. Roman, I've been watching your channel a while now, love the content and your straightforward approach. Where do you see the watch market going in 10 years, 20 years? For example, I absolutely love the Royal Oak Offshores. However, I do not see them as a true collector's watch. I see them as a novelty. I was debating between the Royal Oak Offshore Rose Gold and Sky Dweller. I love both the quality and went with the Sky Dweller because of longevity. Do you believe other watch buyers have the same ideology? What has been your experience as a collector and as a dealer? Sorry for the multiple questions. Stay safe and God bless your family. Regards, Peter. Peter, first of all, thank you for your questions and the kind words. You're asking me the question that everyone and their mother asks me on a daily basis. Hey, what do you see the value of something in the future?
Everything is chrome in the future.
And even though Ian has bought me a glass ball, obviously it doesn't have any magical power, and I don't have a glass ball. I've told you guys before, as a rule of thumb, look backwards. Look and see where previous models are trading at today on the vintage market. So when you look at something like a Royal Oak and you see that the original 5402, right, A serial, let's say, is trading upwards of $100,000, that means Royal Oak is doing something right, but that still doesn't mean anything. In 10 to 20 or 30 years, trends can change tremendously. We're gonna have a new generation of people around that are gonna be growing up to an age. You never know that maybe 2-3 generations from now, people will stop giving a crap altogether about these expensive items, right? Collectors do use the same ideology, right? They think that something has more longevity over another. They think an offshore is a novelty. Well, let me tell you something. The offshore was created in 1992 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Royal Oak, right? Since then, it was going strong for probably a good 20 years, right? Until the Royal Oak sort of took over. At the same time, Royal Oak wasn't doing all that well during the era of the offshore, right? Because trends went to bigger watches, right? Now the trends are coming back down to smaller watches. What makes you think in 10 years we're not going to go back to bigger watches? You don't know any of these questions. My advice, as always, you buy what you like first and foremost.
It's ridiculous, but I love it.
Don't worry about what the value is going to be in the future because, look, not so long ago, a big gold watch on a bracelet is something that you can get at a discount from pretty much any brand. But in today's market, with the hype of Rolex, with the hype of AP, all those prices are up. So don't be surprised to find your Sky Dweller haven't gone down 30%, or if perhaps it's discontinued, go up. You never know. So there is no answer to your question, unfortunately. Here's one from Eduardo. Hey Roman, how are you? I hope all is good. I was just watching a video and someone asked you about the stickers on a Rolex and how Rolex asks ADs to take them off so they don't end up on the gray market. But now Rolex came up with new cars that don't even have the AD name or the client's name, which makes it easier and better for the gray market dealers to sell those watches as new. Don't you think Rolex is kind of contradicting themselves? I think Rolex loves the gray market same as me because they drive their prices up. All the best, Eduardo from Panama. It's a love-hate relationship. Rolex loves it, but they hate it at the same time.
Yes, 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 no, no, no!
Yes, the demand is still there. Rolex is still not going to overproduce because they want to keep the hype alive. They want the Rolex brand to continue to become more and more exclusive. And the only way you do that is to limit the supply, right?
Always leave them wanting more.
But at the same token, they get a million letters in the mail and unhappy ADs and unhappy clients that don't get what they want. And Rolex may be a bad example because right now pretty much any Rolex flies off the shelf, but specifically it's the steel sports models that everybody wants, right? In the case of Audemars Piguet, it's only going to be the Royal Oak line. So right now they have the offshore line suffering a little bit, although they're second best. Any other models that they make, they suffer tremendously because that's all that people want. Same goes for Patek, right? Everybody wants Nautilus and Aquanauts. Everything else sort of suffers, right? So it's a catch-22 for them, right? There's a little bit of good and a little bit of bad in that particular situation. As far as the new cards, look, gray market dealers don't have a tough time selling brand new Rolexes, whether it was stickers, whether it was cards, whether it's new cards, it doesn't, whether it was papers.
Get the papers, get the papers.
It doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, no Rolex leaves the authorized dealers without being registered as sold to a client. Whether they write that name in on a card, whether they register that particular card via computer with these new cards, whether it has stickers, new card, old card, it doesn't really matter. Buy the dealer, don't buy the watch. And at the end of the day, if you trust the dealer you do business with to get you a truly brand new watch, it's up to me to say, look, it went from a dealer to me and then to you. And if you trust to do business with me or any other dealer you do business out there in the gray market, it's irrelevant what the card is, where the stickers are there or not. It doesn't really matter. Here's a suggestion and a question from a gentleman by the name of Tim. Roman, greetings. As always, I hope you and your family are well. Thank you. Would you mind doing perhaps another video on some of more underrated independent watch brands out there? We hear about AP, Rolex, and Patek all the time. Well, they're obviously the top brands currently in the industry. How about we'll learn more about Oris, Halios, Sin, and others you believe are making an exceptional contribution to the watch world? Would love to. However, here becomes the issue. I think we do have some Orises in stock. We definitely don't have any Halios or Halios, and I don't have any Sin watches. What I can do is dive a little bit deeper into the history of the companies. Wait till I actually get those watches in stock. If you could do me a favor, go on my website, look at the header that says Fashion Watches, click in there, look at the brands that are in there, and tell me in turn, what do you want to see on the screen? And I will gladly oblige. And the second thing you said, also, if you wouldn't mind, please slow down when displaying a watch with your phone. You tend to move rapidly, and a good clear shot is often hard to see unless I stop the video, rewind, and pause. You seem to be a no-nonsense, conscious steward of your craft, so I believe you welcome this feedback. I absolutely do welcome all feedback, guys, especially negative feedback. If I'm doing something wrong, if I made a mistake, I want you to tell me this. I will never get my panties in a bunch, and I do appreciate you guys telling me this stuff because it helps me make a better video. One of the things that we're still been talking about for a while now is find a replacement for the iPhone to where things like this don't happen. But this is my true real office, so to make it into a studio is not very practical. I tape every Wednesday for 2 hours from 2 to 4. All the stuff gets removed and I continue doing my job. With the studio, however, we now have a dedicated camera that will zoom into those watches to get you those clear shots as we hold them steady and continue talking. We have a camera operator, Chelsea, who will zoom into those watches and give you those nice crisp shots. So I don't know if I want to move from my office and do everything from the studio. This is kind of where I started. This is what's on my desk, and this is my desk. I could move there for Q&As, but then I don't really show anything on the Q&As. So the what's on my desk won't really be a what's on my desk if I move it over to the studio. But we are thinking of more creative ways to, just show off those watches.
Look at that horse.
To get better, clearer footage. Again, outside of having an extra camera person with another camera there. So that's why we always come back to the iPhone being really the best option. But I will try to definitely slow that down. Just try to maybe hold the phone steady and move the watch itself rather than doing all that. Thank you for the question. I will try to get to what you asked about as far as review after you guys email me and tell me what you want me to show on the screen. I appreciate the feedback every time. And for all of you guys out there that want to give me any kind of feedback, feel free to email me. I never get offended, and constructive criticism is good. I just don't want hater emails. That I will ignore.
I was too busy blocking out the haters.
Here's a good question from a gentleman by the name of George. Hey Roman, love your videos. The openness about the business is great. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you. I like to follow Sotheby's auctions, and I've noticed that sale prices are really high, especially when you add the 25% fee. The same watches are available online for quite a bit less. So why do people pay high auction prices? Am I missing something? Thank you, George. Yeah, it's a question I've asked myself numerous times because I actually put watches into auction, and oftentimes I see watches fetch more money to me even after I paid the auction fees. I talked to you guys about the theory of two dicks in a room, right? You get two guys in a room that start bidding against each other, ego takes over, lo and behold, the watch gets bid up to a crazy amount of money because you get caught up in the act. I know this firsthand because I buy antique guns at auctions. Oftentimes I get carried away myself. It becomes an ego thing, right? So that's number one. Number two, people still get a sense of security buying from a major auction house. That sense of, now my item has, what's the buzzword, provenance, right?
I can't help it. This just feels so right.
It's important. This watch came from a Sotheby's auction. It was lot number such and such. It's documented, blah, 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 blah. They also tend to overrate the expert at some of these auction houses because this watch was reviewed by experts, therefore it's all correct, and therefore it's all legitimate, and I'm going to get the right kind of watch, and the condition report is great. I will give the auction houses an A- on the condition report. It's not perfect, right? As far as their experts are concerned, I will tell you firsthand that I've seen those experts fooled, especially when it comes to vintage pieces, where I've seen pieces go through auction where I indeed knew some parts were replaced on a particular watch. I won't mention auction house names, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, the auction house is still a business, and they're there to make money. They will cut some corners here and there to help the sale. At the same token, I know of auction houses that bid against the wall. When there's a few excited parties in the room bidding on an expensive watch, they will have a mysterious phone bid appear. They will have a mysterious floor bid appear that didn't even exist, right? But people, for the most part, it usually comes down to one or two things. That sense of security, and it's somewhat false, and sense of pride of buying from a major auction house like Sotheby's, right? Oh, I picked this up from Sotheby's. And the second thing is usually it's a bidding war, right? That's how auctions succeed. Auctions succeed on action. And the better the auctioneer, the better the people on the floor that hype up the room, the better the people online. If it's a live online auctions, the more money the consumer is willing to bid. And oftentimes that 25% fee, it's consciously in your head when you say, okay, I want to pay 10 grand for that watch. They're online everywhere for 11. It would be a deal to get it at 10 grand, right? So let's say you find a watch that you want to bid on. They're selling online everywhere for 11 grand. And you say, you know what, if I can get it for 10, it would be a steal, right? Well, now, in order to buy the watch for 10 with a 25% premium, you got to bid up to $8,000. You bid it up to 8, and all of a sudden, somebody hits 8,100. Now, oftentimes, the way auctions do it, and they do this purposely, is that the bidding increments, once you start, let's say, from 1,000, the bidding average could be $100. Once you get to 5,000, they become 250. Once you get to, let's say, over 8,000, they become 500, right? So your next increment is 500. So now you're at 8,500. You say, it's not bad. I'm still buying it from the auction. It's great. It's another $500. Boom, somebody bids 9. You look at the guy over next to you, or you look at the guy online. Something irks inside. It's like, I'm not going to let this guy or girl outbid me. And you're going to hit 9,500. And before you know it, you get to $10,000. Which seems still like a good deal, and while you're getting into the hype of all things, you forget about that 25%, and you just pay $12,500 for a watch you could have bought for $11,000, and that's usually how that happens. And I'm telling you this firsthand. Sometimes I find myself getting deals, and sometimes I find myself getting caught up, especially if it's something that I really, really want, and it's right there in front of me. Hope that answers your question. Here's a good one from a gentleman by the name of Henry A. Roman. Great shows and love your direct, no BS approach. Thank you. So my question for next Tuesday is, with Rolex going to 41mm, many of its models, do you see the Day-Date and the Daytona following this trend? Should I hold off on getting them? No. When he talks about Daytona, it doesn't matter what they make the Daytona, and be it 41mm, 43mm, 40mm. It is irrelevant what they're going to do to the Daytona. There's nothing they can do to the Daytona from stopping it being the #1 selling watch. That's number one. As far as your Day-Date, they already had a 41. They discontinued it and then went back down to 40. So I don't really see them making that change either. I think they found a sweet spot with that 40mm because both men and women buy them alike. Where the 41 tended to be a little bit bulkier, they kind of got the best of both worlds. I don't see the Day-Date changing. We know the Daytona didn't change because we already know all the models. This question is a few weeks old, so they can flip the Daytona inside and out. They'll still be the #1 seller because it is the Rolex Daytona. Hope that helps. Here's a really good one from another gentleman by the name of Henry A. Roman. I'm a longtime follower of your YouTube channel, and I especially enjoy your Q&A videos. I have a question of my own regarding 2 entry-level watches from AP. Code 1159, self-winding, 15210, precious metal, movement 4302, list price 26.8, market price 24,000 based on current 24 estimates. We've actually sold them cheaper. Rolex self-winding, 15,500, stainless steel, movement 4302, list price 20,400, market price 37,000. I'm assuming you're talking about the blue dial. As both watches share the exact same movement, the difference in market price seems pretty big. It looks like a better buy to get code 1159 and enjoy the state-of-the-art new movement from AP. What would be your advice if I intend to keep the watch long term? Do you think the code 1159 collection will get more love in the future? Thanks and best regards. Better buy from which perspective, right? From a horological and a value perspective, obviously the better value is in 1159. Right? Because it's a precious metal watch with the exact same movement, and the price is under retail, right? Where Rolex 15500 is a stainless steel watch where the market is almost double list, right? 70-80% over list, right? Keeping it long term, again, there's no rhyme or reason. Royal Oak line can die out for all we know. Odds are it won't, right? Because it's been popular. The rule of thumb is that if something is not as hot out of the gate, odds are it won't be as hot down the line. Unless you get into an era where this watch is like 50, 60 years old, which at this point you don't really care, right? The 1159 is going to get exactly the same amount of love it's been getting since the very beginning. And let's face it, in the beginning it didn't get a whole lot of oohs and ahs, right? But because they made so little of them, the demand was still enough for them to be sold out. They're doing much nicer things right now. Some of the newer models of 1159, the more complex ones, the tourbillons, the skeleton tourbillons, they came out, they're absolutely amazing. But still, it's not a Royal Oak. When you're hot, you're hot.
When you're hot, you're hot. When you're not, you're not. Well.
So my answer is always going to be the same. You buy what you like first and foremost. But to answer your question, the value is obviously in 1159. But how many guys out there have you seen walk into a room or get together where there's a bunch of guys wearing a bunch of cool watches and say, oh my God, look at that guy with a cold 1159? No. But you see a bunch of guys drooling over a 15,500 or 400 or 300 with a blue dollar because that's the grail, right? Much like the Nautilus from Patek versus a regular annual calendar. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light into your question, Henry. And I'm going to wrap this up with that question. Thank you guys for tuning in one more time. As always, like, share, subscribe, do all those great things that help my channel grow organically. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday.